Okay, so that just happened. The season sees a fourth constructor take to the top step after an exhilarating finale, and the only thing more fiery than what happened on the track was the responses that followed in the media pen. Want to know what happened at the Austrian Grand Prix? Of course there's the obvious, but there was far more than just the ending to talk about. And stick around because we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of the lap 64 incident, and I can tell you now, not all of you are going to like it. So just how did the race unfold at the Red Bull Ring? Well, we'll keep it brief. We know what you're really here for. The first lap saw plenty of drama up and down the field, with Leclerc being caught in a sandwich, continuing his post-Monaco curse. Not only that, but Ferrari was smoking something by promising Leclerc a chance for points when he was over 40 seconds behind and now forced into a four-stop race. There were tight teammate fights up and down the field, with Alpine and Haas being real highlights as the teammates got uncomfortably close. And speaking of Haas, shout out to Nico Hülkenberg for an understated P6 beating Checo Perez. Piastri drove a brilliant recovery race following his qualifying misfortunes, with him, Sainz and Hamilton fighting throughout the race for what was 4th, 5th and 6th at the time. Russell drove a race pretty much on his own, keeping hold of a third place spot in a cleanly executed race, which then saw him jettisoned up to first position following the lap 64 fracas that we'll get onto soon. George came home to win the race, with his cool-down lap radio proving once again that he is potentially the least cool guy to ever reach the top step of the podium. All jokes aside, yabba dabba doo, George Russell claims his second race win in the sport, soothing some of the pressure that he was recently facing in regards to taking the mantle as the number one in the Mercedes team. Okay, with that out of the way, let's inevitably upset someone. So trying to cover the drama that unfolded in the Austrian Grand Prix without annoying someone is going to be pretty much impossible, so we're just going to say it as we saw it. The incident happened in stages and seemed to drag on throughout the entire corner, with the initial incident leading to a subsequent impact. The second impact was pretty much unavoidable due to the rear left of Max's car being punctured, making it so that even if Max put the steering wheel under full lock, his car would have drifted outwards. The initial contact, however, followed what Max had been doing for the last few laps, namely weaving under braking and changing direction in the approach to the corner. It's pretty clear on the top-down view that there was movement at the crest of turn 3 and that Max was moving wider and wider into the corner even as Lando was alongside him. However, Max claimed, despite the replays and the thoughts of the stewards, that he was moving legally within the braking zone by adjusting his braking, as he said. Of course, from the outside, it's hard to see where I brake. I know in the past it was a bit of a complaint. Now I always move my wheel before I brake and then you brake in a straight line trajectory. It's always easy to say on the outside that I'm moving under braking, but I think the guy in the car knows best what he's doing. So we're just gonna say it, all the victim mentality following the race from Gianpiero Lambiase and Max was pretty frustrating to hear. All the talk of that wasn't really fair and putting the blame on the other driver after not only moving under braking and weaving in DRS zones, but reverting back to the old form of either you get pushed out of the track or we're crashing, that we haven't seen from Max since 2021, and it doesn't seem like it's just us that thinks the whole victim approach won't slide either, as the podium drivers in the cooldown room shared a chuckle at what they saw on the screen when the incident was shown. Not only that, but the stewards themselves found the blame was Verstappen's to take. However, upon hearing this, GP and Max couldn't help but air their frustrations as they said, "Of course, that's ridiculous. You can't just send it left and right. What do you want me to do?" To which GP replied, "He didn't behave correctly there, Max, so yeah, desperately unlucky, especially here, but you did your very best." The flashpoint had been coming, and it's something that we've seen time and time again in the sport. Two rivals that are friends off track becoming embroiled in more and more intense rivalries until a breaking point is reached. And according to Norris, there is a real risk that this threshold has been passed after the incident on lap 64, as he said. It depends what he says. If he says he did nothing wrong, then I lose a lot of respect for that. If he admits to being a bit stupid and running into me and just being a bit reckless in a way, then I will lose a small amount of respect for him. But it's still a tough one to take when we're fighting for the win and trying to be fair for my side, and he just wasn't thinking about that. Now, don't get us wrong, Norris's racecraft at points was shown to not quite be as well defined as maybe he would have needed to fight for the win had it gone to the checkered flag, with his rather see-what-sticks approach to overtaking being especially highlighted by the clumsy lockup as they crested turn 3 on a few laps before. However, that may well have been the result of the frustration due to him being at the behest of Max's consistent moving at the end of DRS zones. But even so, it's pretty evident that Norris is still cutting his teeth in regards to fighting at the very front of the field. There, I managed to criticize both drivers, so all you fanboys can bite me. But never mind what I think, how exactly did the stewards assess this incident? Well, their verdict was released after the race, with them deconstructing the incident like this. Car 1, Verstappen, was approaching turn 3 with car 4, Norris, alongside on his left. Before turning in, the driver of car 1 moved to the left, causing a collision with car 4. The stewards determined that the driver of car 1 was predominantly at fault and therefore imposed the above-mentioned penalty in line with the precedents. Now, it's worth discussing just how this incident came to pass, as the Red Bull team really dropped the bag today, and it started all the way from the start of the weekend. Not only was there a botched pit stop at the time that didn't suit the driver, though that's something that couldn't be helped with the traffic, but the fact that McLaren saved back a fresh set of mediums for the end of the race really gave Norris the ability to challenge Max at the front. The Red Bull team can take some solace, seeing as Max finished 5th, and still ahead of his teammate after a 10-second penalty and 2/3 of a lap with a puncture. Yikes, Checo. Not only did Red Bull manage to come away from the weekend with both cars in the points, but they did so with their car pretty much fully intact. Unlike Norris's McLaren, which saw the right side of it completely shredded and worse for wear, to the extent that the car was retired after the team assessed that the damage was too much to continue. This is something that Norris sees as being a detriment on the team moving forwards, as he said, "He ruined my race, destroyed my car. These are the best bits on the car now for the bin. We don't have a lot of space in the battle that we're in terms of upgrades and budget cap and things like that. My whole car is destroyed, and these are the bits that we need for next week." It's not just a repercussion of what happens on track, it's everything that we have to carry into Silverstone and be disadvantaged by. I just expected a bit more from him. The only person more brutal than Lando following the race was his team principal Andrea Stella, who blamed leniency all the way back in 2021 for the incident on lap 64, as he immediately took shots against Red Bull. I see that the entire population in the world know who is responsible, except for a group of people. But the problem behind it is, if you don't address these things honestly, they will come back. They have come back today because they were not addressed properly in the past when there were some fights with Lewis Hamilton in 2021 that needed punishing in a harsher way. Then, you learn how to race in a certain way which we can consider fair and square. Clearly, all the talk of 2021 will be referencing races like Brazil, where Max took on his season-long approach of either you back out or we're going to collide, to the extreme. Stella would go on to make a plea to Red Bull for them to sort it, saying that they shouldn't risk their reputations by being involved in such incidents. However, this was followed by an equal plea to the stewards to basically grow a backbone and take action, as he continued, "The fact is that we have so much respect for Red Bull, so much respect for Max. They don't need to do this. This is a way to almost compromise your reputation. Why would you do that? It's about racing within the regulations, which must be enforced in a way which is effective. Because when a car is out of the race, as a consequence of this incident, the punishment needs to be proportionate to the outcome. We had it twice, moving under braking, so I think it's just evident that we have to enforce the way to go racing because we want to have fun, we want to enjoy it." However, Red Bull took an entirely nonchalant approach in their reaction, with Christian Horner being particularly lax about the incident. I say Red Bull, I mean everyone but Helmut Marko, who quickly said that Lando was asking for it, as he said, "We knew Norris had crossed the white line. I thought the action was completely unnecessary. I think what Max did was more in the limits than what Lando did. That was unnecessarily aggressive from both drivers." At the end of the day, the fact that McLaren was seething after the race and Red Bull were doing everything they could to downplay the incident and the impact of it is pretty telling. Red Bull got away with a sloppily executed pit stop in a race where the driver was clear at the front of the field. They got away with not saving back the optimum tyre, which the medium proved to be over the course of the race, due to the sprint weekend not giving teams the full capacity to research the tyres over multiple free practice sessions. Red Bull came away from an incident which their driver driver has been laid the lion's share of the blame for by the stewards, fellow drivers, and, least credibly with how hard they went with it, the pundits, with a decent points haul and an intact car ready for Silverstone. The instance serves as a massive distraction and let-off for a team not nearly as clinical and potentially showing cracks that haven't been seen in the past few years. So, I'm gonna ask for it. Let us know what you think in the comments. I'm preparing myself for an absolute onslaught, but you know what, I accept it. To be honest, the main thing that I want to know from you is, do you think that Red Bull massively got away with it here? Because as far as we're concerned, the lap 64 incident is just a massive distraction from a poorly executed race when Max Verstappen had everything in the bag. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you for watching.